Hello and welcome to my kitchen. Today I am doing something new that I've never done before. I'm going to be trying to hand dye some yarn. Now I have just like dyed solid colors of like thrifted yarn that I got, but today I'm going to be using some undyed yarn that I specifically bought, which I really only did because it was on a Black Friday sale and it was like $5 a skein, which if you've ever bought like hand-dyed yarn that's especially like a lot of different colors, it usually ranges from like $25 to $35. And so I found it $5 a skein undyed, and I was like, that's pretty much cheaper than you could get it anywhere unless you're doing like wholesale, which I don't qualify for. So I bought some undyed yarn, and I also bought some RIT dye, and I watched some YouTube videos about kind of tips of dyeing yarn with RIT dye, because I didn't want to go for like really high-end stuff price-wise because I don't know how much I'm going to like it. I don't know how it's going to work out. So I went for something a little bit more economical, but I don't know how well doing a lot of different colors is going to work. Okay, so down here I have all of my supplies. I just bought this like disposable pan just in case if this goes really bad. I didn't use a lot of money on like a really nice pan. And right now I have my stove on like a really low heat. It's like still cold, so it's definitely very low. And I decided to go with 3 colors. So I did yellow and orange and pink, because I feel like even if they all mix together, those still all look pretty good together. So I would be fine with that. It'd probably just be like a reddish pink. That's fine. I like that. But in order to kind of like get specific like patches of different color, I bought these like squeeze bottles because I saw someone in another video doing this. I know it doesn't look like it, but this is pink and this is orange and this is yellow, and I'm gonna kind of just be trying to like really pinpoint certain areas with different colors. I really would just like a blotchy patchiness, because I think that is really cute, and I like just kind of the randomness of it, and I love these colors together. Hopefully they'll look more like these 3 all next to each other in the end. But even if they don't, like I said, it should just be kind of like a pinkish red. So if I totally fail and all mixes together, that's fine. And I'll just use the other undyed yarn that I have to make like solid colors, and that's fine because I have other shades of RIT dye as well. But I'm gonna wait for this to heat up. I've already got like the amount of water I want in there, and I put some vinegar in it because the RIT dye recommended vinegar with wool. So I'm gonna wait for it to heat up, and then I'm just gonna kind of go for it. Pretty nervous, but it's fine. Oh my gosh, this is taking so long. It's literally been like an hour. I was really nervous though to have like my yarn at too high of a heat, so I just kept like really slowly turning it up. I literally had so much free time I made myself mac and cheese. But I think it's finally hot enough. I've got like one spot that's just like barely kind of like bubbling, like it's boiling. But everything else is like, it feels like it's right in that good spot. So I think I'm gonna start. I'm really nervous, but I'm gonna see what this looks like. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see, but there's like a little spot up here that's like just barely boiling. So I am gonna just kind of go from here. My plan is just kind of make like big blotches of color, but try and be very prudent with the dye because I don't want to use more than I need to. Really, my only goal in this was making sure you could tell one color from another, so I was really just drawing splotches that were independent of each other, and then I was also checking it with this white plastic spoon to see if the pigment had actually absorbed into the yarn as I was doing it. That way I could tell I was using just enough pigment and not too much, and then I was waiting to let it kind of soak in as I was doing this process. I really have no idea what it's going to look like because, like, I don't know where this skein stops and this one begins, so I don't know. I did turn up the heat a little bit though because I was really having issues in like the corners with it staying warm enough, and all of my dye water is like pretty cold, so it was like cooling it down a lot, so I turned it up some more. So I'm gonna let this set for like 30 minutes and then we'll come back and I'll probably add some more dye. Isn't it so weird that I'm just like cooking yarn right now? Like, the only other time that I can think of people like needing to put clothing material in water on the stove is if you're like ridding your house of smallpox. So this feels like a really niche situation. Comment below how many of you have cooked fabric on the stove. Okay, so they've been on the heat for a while. I went ahead and flipped them over, and overall I feel like it looks pretty good coverage wise. There's like a few kind of light spots up in here if you can kind of see, and there's a few areas that I think that like the pink especially can be a little bit more pigmented. So I am going to be going through and just kind of darkening those up a little bit and kind of filling in some of the empty spots, probably with pink because it's my favorite, but I'm feeling pretty good about this. And I'm going to finish that up, let it sit on the heat for maybe like 10 or 15 more minutes, and then let it kind of cool down before I wash it. Okay, so they've cooled off after I put a little bit more pigment on the back, and I pulled them out and just like really gently wring them out. But like, I'm feeling pretty solid about these. Like, there's a lot of color variation in it. I'm hoping they don't become like really light by the end, because there are some areas that still seem pretty light. So I'm hoping a lot of the color like adheres to it really well, because I feel like I really like where it's at. So I'm gonna wash them out and then see what they look like after that. Okay, I've only rinsed one of them, but I think she's so pretty. Like, oh, there's so many beautiful shades in this. I'm really hoping kind of the more reddish areas dry a little bit more as like a pink. But oh, I'm so excited to see what this looks like all dry. But so far, I'm very happy with what I am seeing. So here they are completely dried. Now, most of the red didn't turn to that pinkish shade that I wanted. I think it's because the pink that I was using was a fuchsia and not just like a regular light pink. I still really like all the variations. There is definitely shades of pink, and you can see the orange and the yellow. There's just a lot of really red in there. I don't know if that's the orange and the pink mixing together, but I do think it ended up pretty, maybe just not exactly what I wanted it to look like. So after that, I was really curious to see what it looked like knitted up. So I went ahead and used my ball winder to put it into a cake. Now, this process was rather difficult because a mistake that I made in the process. Now, I was like a little too rough with my yarn, and it's a single strand yarn, which means it's kind of fuzzy to begin with, and I kind of made it worse and created a situation where it kind of felted, which if you're not familiar with wool, that's where it basically binds itself together and it gets like way fluffier than it's supposed to. So that was a mistake that I made, but makes this process a lot more difficult. So basically for this entire process, I was having to like pull off short amounts at a time and then separately wind them. So I couldn't do it all as one fluid motion, which made it take a lot longer, but it doesn't really harm the yarn too much as long as it's not too badly felted, which it wasn't. So it just made the process kind of frustrating. It makes your yarn a little bit fuzzier. And I felt like as I was winding this, I was really liking what the colors look like even more, just because I think they're in more contrast to each other. When you have them wound up like this, you can really see the difference between the three colors that I used, and it's showing the contrast super well. And then here they are all wound up. And if you look closely, I'm not really sure why this happened, but one of them ended up being like a lot more vibrant than the other. I don't know if it had more heat on it when it was in the water, but this one right here, I feel like just has brighter colors than the other one. So that is the one that I'm going to end up doing my swatch off of because I just really enjoy those vibrant colors more. I'm sorry this video has a lot of voiceover in it, but honestly when I was trying to look up instructional videos for dyeing yarn with RIT dye, really all I could find was solids. So I don't know that RIT dye is used a lot to dye multiple colors or really just one. So I'm trying to kind of give some tips and tricks for dyeing multiple colors. I would say for this one specifically, I wasn't super pleased with the color because I wanted more pink in it, but I think it's because the pink I was using was the fuchsia. If you want like a lighter pink that I think is going to meld better, I would use the petal pink. So this is what my swatch ended up looking like. I do think it's really cute. It honestly looked like it was almost striping, but I think if I use it on a larger scale, those stripes are going to kind of blend together a little bit more. But I did think it was really cute, just not exactly what I wanted. So as much as I really loved those first skeins that I made, I can do better. I can just sense that I can do better. I've learned from the first set and I'm going to try another set. So I've already got 2 skeins in here heating up which is one problem that I'm going to try and fix, is my water did not stay like consistently hot the last time, which is why I think that that one didn't adhere as well. The color just wasn't as vibrant. I'm also doing a little bit simpler of a color scheme that I'm not going to blend quite as much, because I think that really like almost oversaturated the colors, so they didn't really end up looking exactly how I wanted them to. So this time I'm just doing two, and I'm doing the orange again, and I'm also doing this green, which you can't tell very well in camera, but it's like a neon green. So it's a really bright green. I think they're gonna look cool together. And I'm gonna try and really focus on the green. I made the orange kind of diluted more than I did last time, especially because I felt like the orange really overtook everything. So that's what we're gonna do, and I think it's gonna be good. So here we go. I've already goofed this up a little bit, because if you can see, there's like little pink spots, because when I was measuring out my vinegar to like raise the acidity level, there was some dye left in my teaspoon, and so we got a little pink from last time, but it's fine because I think that it will kind of blend with the orange really well. But I'm going to try and do bigger patches this time, because I think that it'll create a little bit better of a motif with the two colors that I've got. But without further ado, let's get started. Honestly, to be completely straightforward, this one turned out even worse than the other one. I was trying to keep the colors really separate, because obviously orange and green are not like the best right next to each other, but they kept like blending. So I would highly recommend stuff that blends together well, because you can kind of see they just turned out like this really weird dark tone in the areas that they mixed together. It's not what I wanted. So the green wasn't as bright as I wanted, and the orange was still like a lot of the color tone, especially this skein for whatever reason ended up having so much more on it. And so it's cute, but still not really what I wanted. And I also ended up making a swatch of this. Now this one I was successful in not felting it like I was the other one, so you can see it's coming off the skein so much easier. And so that's better. It's less like fuzzy and fluffy. It's just not quite the color tone I was going for. I was just trying to simplify and only use 2 colors this time instead of 3, but just let's try again. So for these last 2 skeins, I just thought to myself, how can we simplify? So all I did was dye both of them solid fuchsia. And then I used one of my squeeze bottles to just speckle purple in, or just kind of make like spots of purple, and I just kept flipping them until it seemed even. And then I went through the same process and everything of rinsing and washing and adding wool wash. And I will tell you, I would recommend washing a couple of times when it comes to like pinks, because the pigment is pretty strong. So I had to go through a couple times before I didn't see color in it anymore. But then while I had everything out, like honestly, it's kind of a process to even get started dyeing stuff. Like you have to have the pans out and the water, and you have to have your stuff added and heating it up. And so I was like, you know what, I'm here, I've got the day off work, I'm gonna dye a bunch of yarn. So that's pretty much what I did this entire day, and I ended up dyeing 16 total skeins of yarn. Now most of them are just solids that match yarn that I already have, and I had just kind of wanted to try out the color mixtures, and I kind of forgot to film any of those, but here are the results of them. I had a lot of fun coming up with these, and some of them you can see are like variations of different colors and things that I didn't like completely mix, so that you can see the different shades in them. And that really was like cool to kind of have the process with, because none of these are just like straight out of the bottle colors. And my favorite here at the end is this like wisteria purple, and then the very last one is the last colorway that I did with speckled purple, which I did not knit a swatch of, but I really like how it turned out. And then here's all of them together. Like, oh my gosh, I think they look even better all laid out like this. I love it. Thanks so much for watching my chaotic attempts at dyeing yarn for the first time. If you've never done it before, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. Just maybe stick to the basics and add dye slowly, because that's the best advice that I can add. But thanks so much for joining me today, and tune in next time for another probably random video.